Hello, everyone. I am Peter Freer. I am founder and CEO of Play Attention. Developed it close to 30 years ago, and it's made many changes since we started. Play Attention is sponsoring this Neuroplasticity Masterclass, so we welcome you here. Before we dive in, I would like just to make this as interactive as possible. So if you could, would it be possible for you to type yes, only if this applies to you, in the chat? If you've ever been told or maybe simply felt that your brain is just wired differently, and there is not much you can do except cope. If that's you, type in yes, would you? If you've ever told yourself, this is just how my brain works, I have to live with it. My child is always going to struggle with focus, or I've tried so many things and nothing really changes. I just need to manage it better. So if that's you, type in yes. Thank you. Keep them coming. And no one will give your name out or anything like that. Perfect. Oh, perfect. That's the majority of us here. Yeah. Well, today we're going to challenge that idea. Absolutely. For many years, people believed uh, the brain was just almost like a piece of concrete. Once that was set, that's all you had for the rest of your life. And we now know that's absolutely not true. The brain is more like clay, right? We call it plastic, but not the sense of plastic like we have on my computer here. Plastic means malleable, shapeable like clay, moldable. And it can always be shaped. It can adapt, it can strengthen its new pathways, it can learn new patterns. I mean, that's obvious, right? We knew this for a long time because we have schools. And if the brain could not change, would not make a difference, we wouldn't have schools. There would be no need. We'd all just be sitting around the campfire waiting to try to trap our next meal. So the fact is, the brain is incredibly flexible, and this is called neuroplasticity. That's what this masterclass is all about. So today's class is not about pretending challenges don't exist for us. It's not about saying focus is easy or paying attention is easy. It's not about blaming anyone or struggling. It's about understanding this. The brain changes through repeated, meaningful practice. And when we understand that, we can stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what does my brain need to practice? Now, I started this over 30 years ago because I had students. I'm a former educator, had students both at grade school level and adult level. So I was teaching at community college as well as teaching in elementary schools, had a background in physics, computer programming, computer science, mathematics, and general science. And naively, I thought I could create something that would change all of this. And I stumbled across the fact that NASA was using it. NASA was using neurotechnology to train astronauts how to stay attentive in states of hyperarousal when they're overly excited, and in hypoarousal when they're bored, which is like watching gauges all day, which you often do in a shuttle. So I enhanced it, and here we are today. But we know what we're doing, and we know the science behind all of this, how to make change, and that's what the webinar is all about today. As I typically ask when we do webinars, I really want to make this interactive as much as possible. And you can ask questions. I won't be able to get to your question most likely till the very end, but I will do my best to answer it. But additionally, since we have to work together and collaborate today, the best way to do that is to turn off your distractions. Turn off the TV, the radio, anything that will distract you. Even if you're on your cell phone, turn off your messaging so that you can become totally involved and understand what it is we're looking at. So let's just start with the first myth here, which is incredibly important. Let's start with the myth that the brain is hardwired. And you can see in our graphic here, this is what we were told just 10 years ago. The brain is just a chunk of concrete. It's hard as a rock. It's not changing. This is what you're born with. This is what it's going to be for the rest of your life. That's the myth, right? And oftentimes that leads us to say, well, this is just how my brain works. I'll cope with it. And we all have differences in our brains. Let's be clear about that. There is no perfect brain. We all have differences in how our brains work. And some people are more easily distracted. Some people are more reactive. Some people have a harder time with starting tasks and finishing tasks. Some people struggle with working memory. Does any of these sound familiar to you, that this may be you? Some people have trouble slowing down before they impulsively act or speak. But wired differently, and this is an important statement. You can see it at the bottom of the slide. Wired differently does not mean I am stuck forever. Everyone with me? Follow? Just because I'm wired differently doesn't mean I'm stuck in that position for the rest of my life. And that's based on the fact that the brain will make change. That is neuroplasticity. It means the nervous system can change its actual structure. It will develop new pathways. So if you think of the wiring in your home, imagine putting in an entirely new wiring system. Now, the brain will do that for us when it's provided the right challenges. So it will change its fundamental structure, its function, and its connections and response to stimuli in response to experience. And just getting the right experience, the right program, the right training means that we are not stuck. So we're going to talk about how to move away from patterns um, so that we're not simply coping. This is really important. Coping is one thing, and I'll describe the difference to you between coping and actually changing in just a moment. We're going to talk about how to train new ones, new patterns. Modern science, brain science, tells us something much more hopeful than this we're set in stone kind of thing. The brain is not concrete. That's a myth. The brain is more like clay. It is moldable, shapeable. It can adapt. It can strengthen itself. It can learn new patterns. And that ability is neuroplasticity. Now, if you have ever been, and this is a good place for you to be able to chime in again, um, if you have ever been or told that your brain is wired differently and there is not much you can do about it, if you've ever been told that, type the word yes in, please. And that's quite a few of us here. Not surprising. Probably since being a child, you may have been told your brain is wired differently, live with it. Well, if you're still, subjected to that, know that it is number one, it's not correct. It's not true. And number two, you can significantly make change. I want you to think of it like a pathway in the woods, right? If you look at a pathway in the woods that's been used a lot, you notice that pathway is very clear, right? There's no plant growth on it because everybody's trampled it down. The more you walk on that, the deeper the path gets. But imagine the pathways of your brain, right? Imagine this. If this is your focus path on the right side of the screen in the graphic, is it among a bunch of briars and tangled bushes and shrubs and uh, a really difficult path? If that's you, you can type in yes. Right? So your brain is like a lush, overgrown forest. Inside that forest, there are pathways. Some paths are easy to walk because they've been used over and over again. We know that more we use a path, the easier it is to go over that path again. So these paths may be things like good habits, right? Uh, you know, being able to function on a good level, being able to remember things. But there can also be pathways that we have learned, we have created over the years. So if our attention path, our focus path, is really jumbled and it's difficult to navigate, as in the picture here, then we'll be distracted and we develop other habits like procrastination. And if this is you who finds yourself in this cycle of procrastination, you you don't even want to start a project because it's just too much. And you've told yourself this for years. And then you have, if you have also emotional reactions to the most minor things, and then you just tell yourself, well, I'll do that later, those kinds of excuses. If this is you, you can type in yes, because this is very, very common among folks who live with someone who is ADHD, has a relationship with them, or it's your child, and so forth. Right? If you ever find that you've started a path but you cannot finish it, that's the distraction path, right? Those paths can become like a 6-lane highway, just like you see in the picture here, because you've used them so much, they become common to you and they become real pathways that we use over and over again because we've traveled them many, many times. Now, imagine there is another path called a good focus path. All right. If we have a good focus path, then imagine this one on the right here, the good focus path that it looks like we can navigate that. There's a possibility we could navigate that with a little bit more practice. That path will become even clearer and easier to navigate. So, the focus path, some people, that path is covered in a lot of brush and it's still a little bit harder to walk. But the first time you use it, that path becomes clearer. And it may feel awkward, it could be slow and frustrating and a little bit unnatural at first. But every time you traverse that path, do you understand what's going to happen? Can anybody answer that? The more that you walk that path, the more you use that path, what's going to happen to that path? Can anyone answer that? Jill, thank you. That's right. The more you use that path, the clearer the path gets, the easier it is to navigate. Selma says the same thing. Once we walk on it, it becomes clearer and clearer. Grady says it gets easier to adhere to. Good point. The more I do it, the more it makes it easier to do the next time. I can adhere to it. Rodka says it will start to change. It's more easy. Yes. So, absolutely, this is what we're saying. This is absolutely what we're saying. But how do I get there? That's the next question, right? The fact that the pathway becomes clearer and clearer every time we use it, that's neuroplasticity. We know that's a fact. We know that works. Now, neuroplasticity is the process of walking that new path enough times so that it becomes easier for the brain to find and use. Now, just how do we do it though? Right? That's the question. How do we do that? And Kim said, doesn't stimulant medication help people with ADHD improve their focus, become more motivated, and not procrastinate as much? So the truth about, and that's a really good question, Kim, the truth about ADHD medication is that it is like putting a Band-Aid on a cut. It is a tool you can use, but does it change you internally? No. As a matter of fact, ADHD medication is typically a stimulant medication like Ritalin or methin, like, well, I'd say it's like meth because it's in that same family as meth and cocaine. They are stimulant medications, and they work on everyone the same way. And this is kind of a flaw in the system. So if you go to a doctor and the doctor says, well, I tell you what, I think it's ADHD. I'm going to give you Ritalin or one of the many other drugs for it, stimulant medications. And if it works for you, it's ADHD. Well, the problem is that the medication helps you focus on boring things. That's what it does. It was actually made by a pharmacist who's in Switzerland, whose wife was named Rita. And Rita was trying to lose weight. And so he made her a stimulant medication called Ritalin at that time, and it had an E on the end of it because her name was Rita. And so she lost weight on that. But then they found that that market slowed. And when that market slowed, they found that maybe we should try it on something else. So let's try it on ADHD. And all of a sudden they say, oh, this works. People can focus on boring things. Their brain is stimulated by the medication. So does it provide motivation? Not really, no. Does it allow you to pay attention to boring things? Yes. Does it work for everybody the same way, even without ADHD? Yes. College students know this. That's why they will buy Ritalin from their peers or their ADHD medication from peers who have it. They'll buy it from them. And that way they can take it and they can study for a test where they had not been able to before. So the fact that you have that bandage on, it'll work for some people to help. But I would recommend if we do it internally and we all have the mechanisms to do that, I would strongly advocate it. Because if you remember when there was a shortage of this medication, there still may be a shortage, I'm not aware of it, but there still may be this shortage. People were waiting outside pharmacies, just trying to get, because it becomes a bit addicting as well in many cases. So we want to also talk about what regulates this. What regulates growth in the brain, neuroplasticity? What does that? Well, it's in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is where the management system is built. It's really throughout the entire brain, but we typically associate it primarily with the frontal lobes. The frontal lobes have to interact with every other part of the brain, but this is the way we look. It's your management system. You notice in the graphic, it's pretty cool because it manages your attention, your focus, your planning, your organization, your working memory, and so forth. So this is kind of a critical fact that what we're looking at right here is a critical fact about what the management system actually is. And the management system is incredibly helpful. You can think of it not only as a CEO, but almost like the conductor of an orchestra. If we looked at focus being the woodwind section, planning being the woodwinds, right, or the strings, or working memory is the percussion section, and decision making is the horn section. They all, when you go to a concert and you watch the orchestra warming up, it doesn't sound like music at all. They're practicing different pieces. They're shuffling their music for the evening. They're talking among each other. They're tuning their instruments. It's kind of chaotic. And this, a way, is the kind of a brain before we have really good executive function. This is the way of the brain. It's a little bit chaotic. You can pay attention a little bit to this, a little bit of that, but it doesn't work in harmony. And that's why most of you are here, because you have challenges that you have not been able to meet. But you know, when the conductor comes out and the conductor takes the baton and taps it, puts it up, hands up, then the brain starts firing in synchrony. And in an orchestra, we call that music. In our brain, we call that the CEO of the brain, executive function. It's good executive function. So a lot of the skills that we're talking about here, like working memory, decision making, emotion regulation, they involve that prefrontal cortex. So, and these, again, as you can see on the slide, focus, planning, impulse control, working memory, decision making, emotion regulation, and these are just a few. But when you struggle with these skills, just as if they were parts of an orchestra, and let's say working memory is our strings, And if they're not playing in tune or in time, then we have trouble with daily skills. Like we don't get things done. And people look at us as if we're lazy. Sometimes in your child, it'll appear as defiance. And some people say, you're just not motivated, for crying out loud. Just get up and motivate yourself to do it. But your brain is not wired to do it. So the question becomes, how do I do it? How can I improve my executive function? I think I have a couple of questions in, and let me see if I can answer if there's anything to be answered. Um, well, David says everybody's different and the drugs don't work the same for everyone. Those drugs, if we're still talking about Ritalin, David, those drugs do work pretty much the same for everyone. If it does it help us all, just about everyone, 99% of the population, pay attention to boring things? Yes, absolutely. It'll help everybody. And that's why college students buy it off of their thing illegally and use it illegally. Um, so you can use different medications, and each of those may affect you differently with different side effects, but do they help the brain pay attention to boring things? That's what a stimulant is made to do. And typically they will do the same. And that's documented in a ton of NIH literature, not just me saying it. Um, and Rachel said, well, can changing your diet actually help it? Changing your diet can also help, right? Just having a healthy diet and helping your brain function is always a good idea, no matter what the challenge. Could be ADHD, it could be an illness, but just having a great diet, and especially something like the Mediterranean diet, and keeping your weight down and your sugar intake down is a marvelous way to help your brain uh, navigate this. Will it cure you? No. Will it give you the skills that you need by modifying your diet or taking medication? No. This is one thing that's um, particularly interesting. Taking medication does not teach you skills. Now we know that there are certain skill sets that we need. That's part of neuroplasticity. That's part of executive function. We need these skills. Do you get that through taking medication or diet change or removing dyes or taking supplements? No. They are coping strategies essentially, but there's a big difference between coping and real change from within. So, as I was previously saying, when we struggle with these skills, it can look like laziness, defiance, lack of motivation, or just carelessness, but it's not a character issue. And that's what we want to make very clear. It is not a character flaw. It is not a character issue. It's an executive function problem. And executive function skills can be practiced. And research has shown this on cognitive training and brain change has shown that training can be associated with measurable changes in brain function and brain structure, rewiring the brain, including changes in regions involving attention, memory, and executive control. So again, the message is not, in this case, we want to make this very clear to everybody. The message is not try harder. The message is train smarter. You don't have to try harder. You should train smarter. Now, how do we do that? That's the big question. How do we do it? So one of the key ingredients for this is BDNF, all right? Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's kind of like the fertilizer that supports growth, survival, and strengthening of brain cells. The brain responds physically to how we focus, move, and practice. So when you're exercising, do we build up BDNF? It is like a bubble bath for your brain. Yes, we do. And we also know this on a molecular level. So this is very, very small in the brain. These are molecules in the brain. So BDNF actually helps you establish new neural connections. It nurtures and feeds neurons. And then it leads to something called mRNA. And also we'll get a little bit deeper into this, the Krebs cycle, cyclic AMP response elements and binding proteins. So it works together to actually build new structures in the brain. And the brain is a fabulous organ in that we have the capacity for self-repair. If there is a way a brain can create a new pathway, it will. But it has to build these strong networks. You can see a weak pathway or start of a network on the slide here. And then you see our super miracle grow for neurons called BDNF, and it helps these strong pathways. Now, you don't really need to remember the name. Just remember it's fertilizer for the brain. Or if you're a gardener, think of it as miracle grow. It supports the growth and survival of neurons and neuronal pathways in the brain. And this is critical because this is what supports change. All right. You don't have to remember brain-derived neurotropic factor. You don't have to remember that. You just have to remember the brain can do this on its own. This is all, remember, I'm going to repeat this again because this is all about neuroplasticity. This is how the brain does rewire itself. And we know about this process almost from soup to nuts, from what we need to do externally. I've researched this for 30 plus years. It's now in medical journals. We know exactly how this works, even down to the molecular level. When we see Krebs cycles happen, where they're actually building, the brain is actually building a new structure around the hippocampus. You have one on each side, seahorse-shaped organ in the brain. And it will actually increase the size of it when we learn something new. So the brain responds to how we move, our exercise, how we practice, what we take in, get feedback to, and practice, how we pay attention, how we focus, how we challenge ourselves, and how we repeat skills over time. I lectured about this in Making Permanent Change at the United Nations to, oddly enough, the International Atomic Energy Agency, because we were training at that time how to make people who safeguard and who regulate nuclear power plants, how to make them function better. So it's about three critical things. Challenge is one of them. We have to have enough attention, challenge, and deliberate practice to make a huge difference. That sparks BDNF, it sparks the Krebs cycle, and then builds stronger networks. That's how you get a workout for your brain. Everyone follow so far? Okay, I think we're doing all right. This is what I talked about before. Coping helps, right? Versus training skills, training the skills. So training changes your skills. It gives you new skills, or it strengthens weak skills. Coping helps. So using calendars, timers, supplements, checklists, reminders, it's coping. It's using an external tool to help you cope. It supports us from the outside, shows the steps, but doesn't build internal strength. Is everybody with me? Coping does help. You've learned coping strategies. If you're here and you still have challenges, you've learned coping strategies your entire life, but you're still facing challenges, right? So remember, it supports us from the outside. Nothing wrong with that. They're good to use. It shows us the proper steps to take, but it does not build internal strength to regulate ourselves. So focus, working memory, follow through, impulse control. When you're under training, you can strengthen these brain skills from the inside out through practice. Is everybody with so far? Right? Remember, coping is like using a timer, right? It can remind you to return to the task if you're using a timer. If you're without the timer, you're lost. You're not able to do it. I mean, that's pretty much, it doesn't necessarily train your brain at all. A checklist can show you steps, but it doesn't automatically strengthen your working memory. A planner can hold you to your schedule, but it doesn't have follow through. You have to have that internally. Coping supports us from the outside, training us strengthens us from the inside. And most people need both of these. Most people need both of them. I use calendars all the time. I have a very neurotypical brain, but I still use a calendar because I have so much on my plate I have to remember. So if we want lasting change, we have to go deeper than just coping mechanisms, than like reminders. We have to practice the skill itself. So far, so good. All right, we'll forge ahead. We know the rules of rewiring, right? You need attention, challenge, and feedback, especially in repetition when we're doing this. We call it deliberate practice, if you haven't heard of that before. So, number one, if you want the brain to rewire, we need the right conditions present. And one random good day does not create lasting change. What does is consistency and repetition. The brain needs to practice again and again because remember, we're trampling down the weeds to build the stronger pathway, just like walking outside through a lush forest. That pathway needs to be trodden several times, countless times, to get it down to a clear path, right? Same for the brain. Active engagement is not passive exposure. So you need attention. You need to be actively engaged in the process. Challenge. The just right level, not coasting, but not shutting down, is really what you have to have. Your brain has to get pushed to a certain limit where it goes, ooh, I don't have the capacity for that now, but if I work on it, I can get it. And so the brain starts sparking this new BDNF, and it starts making those pathways. On the feedback, knowing, am I on track or did I drift? So you need that instant feedback. I'll make this clearer in the next slide. And finally, meaning is added to it by connecting the skill to real life. So I think this is very important that you know that there are at least these 5 steps that you really have to adhere to, right? You need to practice again and again to build that new pathway. We know that, we've established that. So the brain changes more when you're actively engaged, which is exactly why when we started, I said, would you please remove all your distractions? Because if you're paying attention to this, you're going to pick it up and you're going to understand a lot more. If you're just, distracted and some you pick a little bit up of this, a little of that, you're not going to get much out of it. So attention is a critical catalyst to spark this change. And challenge, remember, if it's too easy, you go, I'm bored. If it's too hard, you go, I give up. It's got to be right between boring and too hard. It's got to make me work. And remember, if I challenge the brain, it'll spark BDNF, it'll spark the Krebs cycle, and it will start building new pathways so I can retain this skill. Right? And of course, feedback is critical because when we're doing this thing I call deliberate practice, I did not coin that term. Deliberate practice has been around for many years. It was coined by Dr. Anders Ericsson, and he tried to find out why some people could actually do things so much better than their peers. What what could I do to get that, you know. He studied it. He wrote a tome. I mean, the thing is a thick, thick book. But he found out that people who challenged themselves, and he looked at figure skaters, and he found out that figure skaters could, the ones who were the best in the world, practice their most difficult moves about 45% more often than their peers. The peers do what we all, the common people do. We practice the things we're good at over and over again. If I'm good at procrastination, I'll just keep doing it because I'm good at it, right? If I am good at crossword puzzles, I'll continue to do crossword puzzles because I'm good at it. Do I challenge myself to do something more difficult? No, I do it because it feels good. I do it more. But the people who became really good, experts in their field, did their most challenge. They would do like throwing your partner up in the air as a skater on ice, moving, and she spins 2 or 3 times, and you catch her and bring her down. Dangerous move. She could break her leg, break an arm if you don't catch her correctly, right? And her turns have to be perfect so she doesn't injure you. This is really difficult, and they practiced it so often because their brains lived up to the challenge and they learned new skills and they were better than everyone else. And of course, you get instant feedback as to whether this worked or not. If she falls, I didn't catch her correctly, or we both fall, I'm not doing it right. So let's correct. The brain needs that, needs to know this is what I need, or no, it's not what I need. If I don't get feedback, I don't know. So here's an interactive challenge for you. What do you think is missing most often for you? Is it repetition? Is it attention? Is it challenge or is it feedback? Which one of those? All right. And Margot said, this is fascinating. How do you spell Kreb? Uh, you'll spell it CREB, just as you have there. And if you look it up, type in Krebs cycle when you're on Google, and you'll see Kreb and how it uh, establishes new networks in the brain. Krebs cycle. All right. All right. Meaning. It's hard to pick up. Grady said meaning is difficult. Hard to pick up, though. Rodka says it's repetition. Audrey says it's repetition is hard for me. All right. And the researcher, Nomi, says, who is that researcher for deliberate practice? Anders, I think it's Anders, Erickson. And I think it's Erickson with a K, I think. If it's not, it's with a C. No problem. No problem. So a lot of us have, various troubles with repetition, attention, challenge, and feedback, and we don't really know what to do. Here's a mind exercise that we can all do. This is a great one. A simple example. I want you to take a look at one object in your room. All right. Wherever you are, look at one object. All right. And we're going to time this now. It could be a pen, it could be a coffee cup, could be your dog sitting next to you, anything for the next 30 seconds. Keep your attention on that object, but I want you to watch your mind while you do it. You ready for 30 seconds? Get set, find the object, go. Keep an eye on your mind. Okay, almost there. Okay, pause for 30 seconds now. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to notice and return. All right, now, how many times did your attention move during that? How many times did you catch it? How many times did you get distracted? Did you look back at me? Did you look or think about what you're having for dinner tonight? Did you think about those bills you're paying? Right? Here's the point. It's not something you have or do not have. Everyone has attention. It's something you can notice. It's something you can redirect. It's something you can practice. And every time you notice and return, you are practicing a path forward. Right? So on average here, how many people here notice that you drifted more than 3 times? All right. How many people here notice that you drifted more than 10 times? The problem is when you do it, many times it's very difficult to notice when you do drift. That is the feedback loop that's missing. If you've tried, how many people here have tried to be mindful? You've practiced mindfulness. How many people here did that? Yeah, that's a lot of us. All right, Audrey, did you have a question? Are you the one that you practice mindfulness? Yes, a bunch of us actually have. And you notice when you start mindfulness, which is just being in the moment and breathing, listening to your breath and enjoying the moment. When you do that, you notice 10 seconds in it, your brain starts to wander. And this is a skill. It's the same as learning to pay attention, right? Very interesting, isn't it? That we can notice it, we can practice it, we can redirect it, but how do we get to improve it? And I'll go into that in a second. We don't get feedback because the brain doesn't really know when it's losing attention unless you have a capacity to catch it. So it's like everyone's seen basketball, I'm certain here, right? And what would it be like if you threw up a free throw and you wore a blindfold? Could you ever improve? Maybe somebody would lead you to the free throw line and you throw the basketball up. Could you ever improve? And if yes, how? If no, how or why? If yes, how? If no, why? Well, the likelihood of you improving is pretty slim, nil, right? If you have your eyes closed or you have them covered and you throw the ball and you don't know if it went in, how would you ever get it in the hoop and learn to be better and get it in the hoop? You don't know. You don't know if you're too far left. You don't know if you're too far right. You don't know if you even made it to the hoop. You don't know if you used too much force. And this would be a very frustrating way to learn. And that's why, for most of us, attention training without a tool is very difficult. And mindfulness without a tool is very difficult. That's frustrating. And the same is true for attention. If you don't know when your attention drifts, how do you bring it back? You eventually catch it, maybe 10 minutes after it's gone away. So this is what something I want you to step into your child's shoes if you're a parent here or if you work with children. If your attention drifts, how do you bring it back? And if a child doesn't notice the moment they lose focus, how do they start a reset? Because they don't know. Many times you'll look at them and you'll say, I really need you to focus in, please. Let's get this homework done. And they look right back at you and go, I'm focused on you. I'm looking at you. They have no idea what focus is. The feedback mechanism is gone. They don't know what focus really is. They think they're doing it by just looking at you, even though their mind's out playing in the yard somewhere or on their Xbox upstairs that they want to go to, right? So if you're an adult and you can't recognize when your productive work turns into a mental wandering or watching kittens on YouTube, how do you redirect? That's a significant question. Feedback is what makes this possible. The feedback makes the invisible visible. Feedback makes the invisible visible. And that's a significant point here. When the brain gets feedback in the moment, it has a chance to adjust. And that's when practice becomes training. So imagine this. He takes the blindfold off. He shoots the basketball. And it hits the backboard and goes in, but not quite what he wanted. He adjusts the force to the throw and its follow through, gets it in as a swoosh, sees it, gets that feedback. What if I do that again? Swish, it goes in. Then he tries it again and it's too powerful. I need to go back, a little less force. And after a while, because he is now getting feedback, That pathway is now developing. And I'll give you a great example of this. One of the greatest basketball players in the world was Michael Jordan. And people thought, well, this guy is just gifted with superstar magic force. Michael worked to get that magic force, to get that magic skill level. Michael worked longer than his peers. When people were leaving the court or had left the court for the evening, he would stay on an extra 2 to 4 hours, practicing all of his shots from various places in the court, getting immediate feedback. That's what creates change. That's what makes you look like a superstar. It's not just doing the practice that's required, it's challenging yourself and repeating consistently. So I hope you are following. If you're not, let me know. All right. Okay. Audrey said, nearly burned dinner after I left the kitchen to check my phone in the bedroom this week. Perfect example. Thank you. Took me almost 10 minutes to realize I had food on the stove. So getting feedback would have been very helpful to improve focus and attention. Isn't it true for all of us here? Audrey, I'm so glad you said that because that's everybody, right? At this point, we are so distracted as a people. It is difficult. But that is a perfect example how easily distracted we are. We are among the lowest possible attention span we have gotten. We have since the measuring of attention spans has begun. We are at about the lowest in history, as opposed to people back in the 1860s, 1890s who were listening to debates between Lincoln and Douglas and would sit there for 4 hours in a debate. Boy, you gave us something like that today, it would be considered torture. Our brains couldn't do it. We have a hard enough time watching a 2 hour movie. They cut them down to an hour and a half and less now because we can't do it. I mean, it's a fact because we work with tools like cell phones and such that really destroy our attention levels. So where does ADHD fit into all of this? ADHD affects executive function, but ADHD is not the whole story. We're not asking, how do we hide ADHD? We are asking, how do we train the skills that support our daily life, our daily function? All right. ADHD, we have poor focus, weak working memory, impulsivity problems, time blindness, but training brain-based skills means that I can increase my focus. I can increase the strength of my working memory. I can control my impulsivity, and I can manage my time. No medication is going to teach you that. No supplement is going to do that for you. You must train these specific skills if you want these. It'd be like me telling you, well, you know what? I know you want to swim, so I'm going to lay you on this table on your stomach, and I want you to move your arms like this. All right. Now I want you to kick your legs like this. All right. You're going to be ready to go in the water. We'll throw you right in, and you're going to swim. If I want you to do this, I have to put you in the pool and support you and let you learn how to swim. And that's what we're talking about. And you have to get the practice in so that you can do it on your own. That's what we're talking about, right? Remember, the bigger story is this. The bigger story is that executive function skills are brain-based skills. And brain-based skills can be strengthened through neuroplasticity. That's what we've all talked about up to this point. So, not asking how we hide it, we're asking how do we train the skills that are going to be life-changing. So here's the rewiring point. How we move from wishing for change to training for change. Step one, we notice, what pattern do I want to change? Now, I knew all of this when I started Play Attention. And I had enhanced what NASA was doing when I was watching what they were doing with astronauts. And I said, well, I could use that to train executive function. We are the only program in the world that meshes that together with neurotechnology. And it's been around for over 30 years. So we've helped countless people. It's been tested by Tufts University School of Medicine in 3 randomized controlled studies published in 3 peer-reviewed medical journals. And they challenged us by putting us up against brain training games that you can get online. This is another thing. People say, well, I could do those brain training games online. Problem is you don't get feedback. You don't know how much time your mind is spending on it because you get distracted. It's different when you're using neurotechnology, and I'll explain that in a minute. But what the key to this is that we knew this over 30 years ago and implemented it. Now, by the way, we have opened up and pay attention a special branch, a special division called Silver Minds for those people 55 years and older who want to have cognitive vitality, who want to maintain cognitive vitality and practice to maintain it. And so those involve online courses. And at our local offices in North Carolina, we do them there as well, where people come in to get this training because it's so meaningful. So it's not just ADHD or autism or TBI. It's also people who want to maintain this throughout their life. That's one thing you can do with a play attention system. You could use it for the rest of your life to maintain and get better. Is it making sense? Here's how you do it. In the rewiring plan, you have to notice, what pattern do I want to change? Is it my working memory so I can work with more data, remember phone numbers a little bit longer, and be able to process conversations and use the intelligence I have? Number two, what brain skill is involved, right? I want to improve memory. What skill is that? Well, there are all kinds of memory: spatial memory, short-term memory, working memory, long-term memory. But I want to work particularly on working memory. That's the skill I want to change. Then you choose that skill and you practice it directly. We give you games in Play Attention to help you do that. Practice working memory. Then I get feedback from those games, giving the brain information. How did I drift out? How did I improve? All those data are handed to you, and you can't drift out for too long and Play Attention, because when you're using it, we give you a special armband and it monitors your attention in real time. And if you drift out of it, it stops the game in front of you and says, you need to focus back in to get going. So you're not allowed to stay out long. It's rewiring your brain as you use it to be in the zone and learn that skill that you need. Then you have to repeat it consistently, right? We want you to get in an hour per week minimum. You get more than that, great. Just do enough and challenge yourself to do it. But this is it. You have to notice what pattern I have. And maybe your pattern is procrastination. Well, what skill is involved? Well, I have to be able to self-regulate. I have to plan and organize and just learn what it takes not to put something off, to start this task. We call it time on task. Start a task, maintain it, and close it. So that's my skill. I need time on task. I'm going to use that skill and I'm going to practice it directly. Give that brain the important information. How much am I drifting? How much am I in the zone? I practice that repeatedly. Now I'm going to let you in also, as far as your brain function is concerned, I teach martial arts. And if everyone here probably has seen those fighting contests called the UFC and those kinds of things. And it's very violent activity. And they're in a cage, they fight in a cage, they kick and they punch and they knee and they elbow, and they do grappling till someone gives up or gets knocked out. One of my students did that, and I told him not to. I said, you'll get 15 minutes of fame and a lifetime of misery. And he fought me on it. He went and did it. And he came back a few years later and he's brain damaged. They stopped letting him fight because you have to take a neurological exam. He goes to Washington State, and the doc comes out and gives him the workover and said, stand on one foot for me for a second. He can't do it. Matter of fact, I just talked to the doctor. He had to grab the table. His brain is damaged. And when he came back, I said, fortunately for you, I have the technology And now he couldn't even teach his martial arts classes without his wife filming because he couldn't remember the students' names and he couldn't remember what he taught the night before. That's significant brain damage. And now he doesn't need to record. He develops his own curriculum and he remembers his students' names. And that's because he used neurotechnology, the play attention program in this case. It's an amazing thing to watch that. And it was just so serendipitous that we came full circle. I'm his martial arts instructor, comes back to me, and I said, I've got a program for you. It is heartwarming for me to say that to you because it made a significant impact to his life. And it's done it for many people who have things like ADHD and so forth. Play attention, making attention visible. All right. Remember, I told you about that armband. And it's NASA inspired. I watched what they were doing. I enhanced it. I received patents. When NASA found out I had done that, they invited me to speak on their behalf at the National Space Society conference in Washington, D.C. And I was delighted to do it. And then they put me in NASA spin-off magazine twice. So play attention helps the brain see that it is engaged, right? Because we have that monitor on the arm and it lets you see in the program, control the program with your mind. And it lets me see if I'm drifting, if I came back, I can. And then you see that instant feedback says, ah, I can control this. My brain is in charge here. I'm in charge here. I am empowered now to change my life. Plus, you get a focus coach that you can meet with as often as you wish. They'll help track your progress with you, but you'll see your feedback data at the end of the session. And you can connect it to your training to all of your real life situations. Like Aubrey just said, I was so distracted, I almost caught fire in the kitchen. So if this seems like makes sense to you, this is what we want to make you understand is that there are tools that allow you to do this internally and strengthen internally. And they're incredibly powerful, but it's not a miracle, right? Because we know we have to be ready to do this consistently. We have to have repeated, deliberate practice. Deliberate practice means I get feedback. I set little mini goals. Our program actually does that for you, has a little AI in it. So it says, hey, for you, this is what I think we should achieve next time. So you've got a challenge built in for you. And then you meet the challenge and it allows you to keep progressing over time. So consistency of deliberate practice, watching my attention and getting that immediate feedback. Crazy important to make incredible uh, progress over time. You don't have to use it the rest of your life. These skills will be yours. When you learn them, they're self-reinforcing. When you do things well, right? When you can turn in work on time and you do it well, and your employer said, "You did a fantastic job. I am so glad to see this." You know, you'll do it over again. It is self-reinforcing. I'll go back to my student. I did a podcast on this, but I don't want to mention his name. But his wife called me um, from the hospital. I knew he was having a hip replacement. And she calls me from the hospital and she's in tears. And I said, does something go wrong? What is going on? She goes, no, we're at admissions and he's going in for surgery, but I just had to call you. And she's crying. And she said, they asked me for his social security number and I told him. I told the administrator what it was. And my husband looked at me and said, no, that's not right. You gave him the wrong number. It's this. That's one of the kids' numbers. And she goes, you haven't known your social security number for 5 years. Let me handle this. I've got it. Because she treated him like one of the kids, one of her children, because he was functioning like that. And he said, no, you're wrong. So she pulled out his social security card and he was right. So she was calling me in tears to tell me, number one, he could do it. And number two, ask me how he could possibly get that back. How compelling is that when you see that kind of change? And it's all from this rewiring cycle that I just mentioned to you, right? So you can join this neuroplasticity challenge. We give you an executive function assessment to find out exactly where the holes are in your executive function. Then you get a personalized action plan. So it's not just the same program for everybody. We customize it to you. You get a personalized action plan. So we know what you need and how to get it to you. Plus, you get 6 bonus cognitive exercises. The neuroplasticity challenge guide, household pass for and 2 bonus licenses. So if it's not just you, but maybe a couple other people in the family that need it, you're going to get licenses to put them in the program. No extra charge, it's included. Weekly momentum coaching calls. So you'll get one of our focus coaches talking to you weekly, just saying, hey, how is it going? What can we do to make it easier, make this more valuable to you? Okay, so it is a comprehensive executive function assessment. That's the first thing on here that you're going to get. So we know exactly what you need. But the real value is not the savings of $650 that this provides, because they throw a lot into this. But the real value is, number one, you're not going to guess anymore what the problem is. Your training is now a plan. Real training with a plan. Neuroplasticity is not just going to float into your head by osmosis. It happens only when your brain practices and with the right skills that you need, with feedback, repetition, support, and a purpose. Now, that's all of what is supplied to you in this. So, this is an incredible question for you. What would change if you truly believed the skill could be trained? Not changed overnight, not magically fixed. That's not what we're saying, but trained. What would change at home? Can anyone answer some of this? Right? Type one word in. What are you hoping to strengthen? Focus, calm, memory, follow through, confidence, organization, or your child's confidence? Is decreasing your daily stress. What would change at home? What would change at work? Go ahead and type that in. I'm dying to hear what you think you could do. Oh, these are great. Perfect. Memory, mindfulness, my child's confidence. There's so many more. We do actually even have programs for mindfulness. Follow through. Tiara says follow through. That's really good. Daily stress organization. Right. Licensing means that when we send you the program, typically we give you 1 license when you buy the home program. But with the Neuroplasticity Challenge, you're going to get, I think, 4 licenses. So if you have extra people at home that need this, you can use it with up to 4 people at home. All right. And then it's just important to understand if you do this, you can use this as long as you need it. You can use it with various people. And a lot of people who use it themselves oftentimes become trainers with it because they see how much it's done for themselves, so they use it with other people. All right. In summary, right, the brain is not concrete. The brain is more like clay. Your brain can change, skills can grow, new patterns are possible. And obviously, we'd be honored. This is what we do. This is what we've done for over 30 years. So here's the Neuroplasticity Challenge. If you want to start your customized program, request a consultation. Consultation is free. You'll meet with a specialist and on Zoom, and they'll consult with you to find out. Take the ADHD online test. So there may be things that you missed. We know that's true for a lot of us who are here. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you learned exactly what this is that we're doing, what you need to do, what is happening in your brain, because the more you come into focus on what is going on in here, it's incredible, for you to be able to see that you can make change All right. Take care. Thank you so much.